Why does this new PS5 beta sound so good? Grab a cheap PS5 while you still can. And how much will 8 terabytes really cost you? How's it going, everyone? Welcome to PSReady. This is the weekend update here on the channel. I hope you're having a ton of fun playing new video games. Over on PC, Baldur's Gate 3 just came out, and if you have a PC, it might be worth picking up because I'm pretty sure it's gonna have cross save. So when it launches in September on PS5, you'll be able to just pick up right where you left off. But yeah, that's the game that I think I'll be playing this weekend. All right, so this first news story I have for you guys today is going back to the beginning of the week when Sony dropped a new beta update for the PlayStation 5. I went over that in detail, like pretty much every feature that's included in this update. So if you want a full breakdown, go back to my video I posted on Tuesday and you'll be able to see that. But there was one feature that I really wanted to focus on in today's video. Well, there's actually two because we'll be talking about the 8 terabyte SSD, and I promise it's not an ad. But the feature I wanted to focus on first today is Dolby Atmos, because I don't think people realize how cool it is to have this feature included on the PlayStation 5. So if you didn't know, I'm a huge movie fan. I go to the movies pretty much every week, and my favorite genre is horror. That's actually how I got started on YouTube with a horror channel that's just called Jimmy Champagne. I just posted a video about A Nightmare on Elm Street coming back, so if you're interested in that, go check it out. I'll link it down in the description. But back when I was in LA, I was totally spoiled with movie theaters to the point where like I could pick any direction, right? And I would hit a movie theater within 20 minutes, whether it was an AMC, a Regal, a Cinemark. There was even Alamo Drafthouse. They had so many different theaters. Like I could even go to Quentin Tarantino's theater that he owned. But the one that I would always go to was at the Century City Mall because they had a Dolby Atmos theater and it just sounded so damn good. And then after I lived out there for a couple of years, I started to notice a lot of soundbars were supporting Dolby Atmos and a lot of TVs were starting to support it as well. And even like phones are starting to support it these days. So it is a really cool technology that I'm glad has made its way out of the movie theater and into people's homes. It really felt weird that the PS5 wasn't supporting it for this long. Of course, the only reason it seems that Sony has implemented this on the PlayStation 5 though is because it ties into their exorbitantly expensive soundbars. Like every electronic Sony makes outside of the PlayStation is very expensive, but you also get a really high bar of quality from them. Whether you're talking like Bravia TVs, their soundbars, even their smartphones, their cameras, like the one I use is an A7 and I love the way it looks. We even shot the 2 Halloween fan films I made with it and I think they look pretty good. So yeah, the bar of quality with Sony electronics is high, but I still think a lot of their stuff is a little bit overpriced. So yeah, with this new beta update that brought along Dolby Atmos, Sony has updated its HT-A5000 and HT-A7000 soundbars that will add VRR and ALLM to those soundbars. And if you're sitting there wondering how VRR and auto low latency will work with a soundbar, it basically means that when your monitor's refresh rate or your TV's refresh rate is changing along with the frame rate that the game is outputting, the soundbar will be able to take advantage of those features too and keep the audio synced, right? Because if the frame rate is going from 30 to 60, which unfortunately is a thing that's been happening lately with performance modes in games like Jedi Survivor and Final Fantasy 16, then you know the audio could go out of sync. And I don't know if it bugs you guys, but man, it really bothers me when audio goes out of sync. I can like immediately see it and it's super frustrating. Oh, and another cool feature with these soundbars that I don't think many people are going to take advantage of is the fact that they can pass through 4K 120 and still keep things synced up really well. On the one hand, it is a little frustrating that we only ever see these features added to the PlayStation 5 when stuff like Sony Bravia TVs or these H series soundbars get these features. Like on the TV, if you guys remember last year, we got an update with the PS5 where instead of using Dolby Vision, Sony went through the trouble to just clone Dolby Vision and they gave it some super generic name. And the technology is really good, right? Like having the HDR go frame to frame instead of be an across the board thing, which is what you get with HDR10. That's awesome. I appreciate that. It's just frustrating that Sony went through the trouble of just making their own instead of using Dolby Vision, because Xbox uses Dolby Vision and more TVs have Dolby Vision than they do Sony's weird proprietary version of it. This time around though, I'm glad they didn't really want to spend the time or money to make a competitor to Dolby Atmos, which you know makes sense because I think personally sound is a much harder thing to equalize for than picture quality. So yeah, they probably just wanted to save the money on developing that and now they're adding it into their soundbars. So of course we're getting it added into the PlayStation PS5. I've been using Dolby Atmos. I have it set up on my TV upstairs with my Sonos soundbar, and it's absolutely amazing. Back when I was in LA, I had the same soundbar with two shelf speakers that I got from IKEA. They were like Sonos bookshelf speakers. You could use them as like back speakers and then have the soundbar be the front middle, and it sounded pretty good. But now that I have a TV here that's taking advantage of Dolby Atmos and I can't drill those speakers into the wall because it's all plaster, I think it sounds actually a lot better than even when I had that little surround sound setup back in LA. So yeah, I think Dolby Atmos is a great feature that's coming to the PlayStation 5. And honestly, I think it might be one worth upgrading your TV for. Like if you're sitting on an older TV that doesn't take advantage of Dolby Atmos or Dolby Vision, or you're using like a Black Friday soundbar that doesn't have Dolby Atmos either, I'd say it's worth grabbing like a cheaper Sonos, like maybe a Gen 2 Sonos Beam, or a different soundbar that's like a couple generations old. Because as someone who had to set up a whole new setup down here in my basement, I did not realize how expensive audio equipment is, and what I ended up doing is going with two HomePod minis, which was like 200 bucks. That was like the cheapest way I could get decent sound. But yeah, if you don't have a good soundbar and you want to take advantage of Dolby Atmos, now is a good time to do it because the PS5 supports it. Are you looking for a strategic naval game that hits all of your wants and needs? I'm talking stuff like being massively multiplayer, free to play, having historically accurate warships, and being available on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and Xbox Series S. Then today's sponsor, World of Warships Legends, is waiting for you. Over 8 million players have joined the game since its launch to explore its naval world, with 400 plus ships, 20 plus maps, and 100 plus commanders to venture the seas. For the first time, World of Warships Legends is going from online to your game console. Scout and destroy your enemies with all the advantages of power and capability that comes from your PlayStation or Xbox. This game is all about strategy. There's no need to run into battle because it might cost you. You'll need to make thoughtful decisions in PvP battles ranging from 9v9 all the way down to 3v3v3v3. Every 5 weeks, the fleet grows and there are 11 different nations and Pan-American ships waiting for your commands. You've got destroyers, which are armed with deadly torpedoes. You've got cruisers, which are better armored and armed. Then you've got battleships, and finally the versatile aircraft carrier. This naval adventure only got better on July 26th. To celebrate their 4th anniversary, World of Warships Legends is launching a treasure hunt. Navigate through this event across a mysterious island partitioned into 3 compelling fields, each housing 16 cells brimming with hidden rewards. Earn keys from daily activities to unlock chests, and an ultimate crate might be among them. And even if you miss the web event, don't chip out without downloading World of Warships Legends to your PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series S or X. The link is down in the description. And then the next thing I wanted to cover from this update is the whole situation around 8 terabytes of storage being supported by the PlayStation 5. I really don't know what Sony was thinking here. It must have been something just as simple as flipping a switch, because as people pointed out, the B-roll I used in that video, I showed a SATA drive that was like an 8 terabyte SSD, but it's one that you have to plug into your computer. It's not one that you can actually use in the PlayStation 5 because it has a little cooling enclosure and everything like that. So I looked around and I was actually only able to find one 8 terabyte SSD from Sabrent, and it's $1,000. It is available on Amazon, but I would definitely stay away from this for a few reasons as of right now, just because A, I've used Sabrent drives in my Steam Deck. I've also used them in my ROG Ally, and I have had problems with them before. I've had to send a couple back to Amazon because I don't know why. There's this whole issue with Amazon where people are faking SSDs and SD cards, and I think I ended up getting a dud 2 times with Sabrent drives. Ever since I got them replaced though, the drive in my Steam Deck has been holding really strong. I actually replaced the original drive I had for that, which was like a used Microsoft Surface drive. It was a Samsung one. That one's speeds weren't very good, and the Sabrent drive has been really good. And then also the one in my ROG Ally, I've only had it in there for about a week, but I already mentioned this. I have a 4090 plugged into that handheld, and it hasn't fried itself yet. But also, this price of $1,000 is absolutely insane for something like this. The 4 terabyte drives that have been out for a little while now, they've been putting them on sale with like 2 for the price of 1 deals, so you can actually get them for around $250 or closer to $300. That has been happening all the time, and they're also more widely available, and they became widely available very quickly, right? Like I feel like it was only a year ago when 4 terabyte drives started showing up, and now a few different manufacturers make them and the prices have fallen. So while yes, it would be awesome to have an 8 terabyte drive in your PlayStation 5, and I think that we will get there within the near future, I don't think it's worth paying $1,000 right now to do so. I mean, the only thing I could really see that being worth it for is if you have like a fully spec'd gaming PC, right? Like if you got a 4090, the latest AMD processor, 64 gigs of RAM, and you really need a beefy SSD to really top it off. That is like the only situation where I would say it's like worth it, because if you're paying for a PC like that, you can clearly afford it. And yeah, you don't really have to worry about spending $1,000 on an SSD. But for everyone else, you know, us normies who are just happy spending $500 on a PS5 and maybe $150 on a 2TB SSD, I think I'm gonna wait on the 8TB upgrade. But you know, the upside here is I really couldn't find an example of Sony making one of these 8TB SSDs, so they don't really have an incentive like they did with Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. So, you know, baby steps towards actually being consumer friendly. Next up here, I've got a couple quick updates for you guys. The first one is that the PS5, for the very first time, just the regular disc edition of this thing with no included games or any bonuses or anything like that, is on sale for $50 off. So if you don't have a PS5 right now, I think it is totally worth going to grab one. Even if you were looking at the digital model for $400, buying this one for $450 is an absolute no-brainer. I understand that you could get a couple games or at least one AAA game for $50, but you know, getting that extra disc drive I think is more important than getting one game with your PlayStation. So yeah, I would say buy the console and then maybe subscribe to PS Plus Extra and try out some of the older games that have come out for the console, like Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Horizon Forbidden West, or Returnal or something like that. I think that is definitely the way to go over getting a digital edition of the PS5 and then, you know, buying a few digital games for it. There's no word on how long this price decrease is gonna last, but I would guess personally that it's going to last until they basically sell through a big majority of the amount of consoles they have laying around. It seems like they got themselves into a situation here where they overproduced the current PS5 to make up for the lack of current PS5s that we had for the last 2 years. And now they just have this surplus of them at Sony, but like really, I don't have a lot of sympathy for them, because one of the big contributing factors to them having a surplus is their absolute refusal to lose any money on this console. So, you know, they raised the price pretty much everywhere around the world except for the United States. So when you look at this discount, in a lot of the places that it happened, it's not really even a discount for a lot of these territories. It is definitely for the US because they never raised the price of the PS5 here, but for a lot of these territories, they raised the price by over $50. So discounting it down 50 more bucks just basically brought it back to the launch price. So yeah, I don't really have a lot of sympathy, because while I'm sure it's not a perceivable amount of sales that they lost through increasing the price everywhere else, I think it probably slowed down sales just a little bit and contributed to this surplus that they have. But the reason they really want to get rid of these things, of course, you all already know, is because the PS5 Slim is coming out later in the year. But, you know, this is just even more evidence, I would say, that this PS5 Slim is just going to look the same as what we already got, or maybe have just some minor differences to it. My fingers crossed, really hope, like pie in the sky wish, is that the current plates that we have, like the dark plates or these Spider-Man ones that are coming up, those will work with the brand new PS5, because that would really suck to buy the plates for your PlayStation 5 and then decide you want to upgrade and not be able to use them. The next small update I have for you guys, though, speaking of dbrand, is coming from them. So it's related to that whole situation we had last week where Sony opened up pre-orders on the special edition Spider-Man 2 console, the DualSense, and the plates for the digital and disc edition PS5. The console stayed in stock all day because, of course, people already have a PS5 and I'm assuming they don't really feel the need to buy another one, and the controller stayed in stock all day because that's easy to make. But the plates sold out instantly, and Insomniac responded to people saying it's very unlikely they're going to be restocked, and dbrand actually responded and said, should we fix this situation or something like that. So I don't think they're going to be able to do a Spider-Man edition plate, but I could see them removing the Spider-Man logo and just still having the Venom tendrils or something like that. But unfortunately, they have the like flush sort of plates with the console, and I'm just not a big fan of those, so I don't know if I'd pick them up. I think the real fix for this situation would be Sony just producing more pieces of plastic, because if you look at the whole PS5 lineup of accessories, I think it's pretty fair to say that the cheapest and easiest thing to produce is these plates for the console. And the last news story I have for you guys today is the list of the top 10 best-selling games of June and how that fits into the year overall. So going from most to least, we have Diablo 4, Final Fantasy 16, Street Fighter 6, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Hogwarts Legacy, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, MLB The Show 23, Spider-Man Miles Morales, and Spider-Man. And how that actually compares to the year as a whole is pretty interesting, because at number 1 we have Hogwarts Legacy, number 2 we have Zelda, number 3 we have Diablo 4, number 4 we have Modern Warfare 2, number 5 we have Jedi Survivor, 6 Resident Evil 4, 7 MLB The Show 23, 8 Dead Island 2, 9 Final Fantasy 16 and 10 Street Fighter 6. Now, digital sales aren't included in this list, so I'm assuming it would be a little different if they were, but just seeing Diablo 4 top the charts for June and also already be the third best-selling game this year, that's absolutely nuts to me, and it really just shows how bad it sucks that they ruined the game with the last patch. I just wish this game could have come out and been fun, right? Like, the whole goal with the game should have been to allow people to break the game with insane builds and fly through the content and just have the most fun possible playing Diablo 4. But since it's a live service game, the goal is not for people to ultimately have fun. The goal is to keep them playing the game pretty much every day with daily challenges, battle passes, microtransactions, because that's what's going to keep them spending money on the game and in the game. And if you have people's eyes, they can't spend money in other games or on other games. And then speaking of live services, I'm also pretty down on Destiny right now because they just put out a state of the game that might be one of the worst ones I've ever seen. Not only were they like, hey, we're working on PvP stuff, we're throwing one map in the game, but we're not going to allocate more resources to PvP maps because we can't make money off of them, which really sucks. They also said that they're reducing the amount of armor sets that you're going to be able to earn for free, which just compounds itself on top of the accusation people have been throwing at Destiny all month that it's a microtransaction hell, because you can spend $100 on this game every year to get the expansion in all the seasons, and they still go ahead and put the coolest sets in the Eververse shop while things are getting pretty rough in the live service space, and I think they're going to continue to get rough as the years go on. I think we're doing just fine over in the single player space. Anyway guys, as always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.